Greetings, Valley Baptist Church family. I'm Brian Buhler, an associate with Ideas. Pastor Greg invited me to share with you today about our work in Lebanon while he's away officiating at his aunt's funeral. Since we're still in the year 2020, we have yet another crisis, this time wildfires and hazardous air quality, so we will not be meeting physically at the church. I was recently interviewed on Nehemiah Project's e-community podcast on Facebook about the crisis in Lebanon, and several of you thought that the video I'm about to share would work well to introduce us and our work in Lebanon. The gentleman interviewing me, his name is Patrice Sage, co-founder and chief servant officer of Nehemiah Project International Ministries. Patrice immigrated from Cameroon in 1983 to later develop biblical entrepreneurship program and then found Nehemiah Project. Please join me for this interview.
Welcome to the Nehemiah Entrepreneurship Community Podcast. I'm your host, Patrice Sage. I'm here today with Brian Buhler. Brian Buhler is our home office coach. He's also a Christian professional with Ideas. Brian is a biblical entrepreneurship trainer and coach with Kingdom Business Coaching. He has an MBA and a BS in computer science and 29 years of business and technology experience. Brian has had expertise in the area of industry engineering, web, software development, information services, network, and system administration project. He's done work in those areas, including others in countries like India, Mexico, West Indies, Brazil, and of course, Lebanon. And so he has a broad understanding of international business. Brian currently runs our, as a home office coach, he runs our classes on the self-study courses. So if you take any self-study with us, Brian is your instructor. He also runs a class with Frank Katanga in Kenya. So those of you from Kenya, you may recognize Brian because he's an instructor there. Brian also won the 2020 Trainer of the Year. I have Brian today to talk about the crisis in Lebanon. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Patrice. Good to be here.
Well, Brian, I know that Lebanon is very dear to your heart. An incident occurred there several weeks ago, and want to have you on the podcast to talk about it because you are doing some things to help in that area, and we'll get into it. And so, friends, today's focus is going to be really around the Lebanon situation. Brian has lived in Lebanon. He recently was there until recently. And he's going to kind of educate us about the situation. Why should we care? How can we help? And so forth. But before we get into Lebanon, however, I want to kind of just, for you to get to know Brian a little bit and kind of give you a little background. So, Brian, you serve as a Christian professional with Ideas in several countries around the world. And first, what led you, Brian, to this kind of work, and has been your experience?
Well, I've always felt called to areas of greatest need to, use my gifts and professional skills with a desire to transform lives, and just like the idea of restoring hope. I'm kind of a perpetual hope machine. I don't know. I just like to see hope injected into communities, and so using the skills I've obtained and were given. As well as my experiences, I like to be able to connect in that, and that's why I like working with Ideas because we focus on overlooked and forgotten peoples using professional skills. We restore hope, transform lives, and also what has drawn me into Nehemiah, the same kinds of things where we're looking to do a holistic approach to business and doing business God's way.
Awesome, Brian. I'm just trying to imagine young Brian. Coming up as a teenager, a young adult. Is that kind of what you had in mind to do? I mean, is that since then? I mean, talk to me about teenage years, young adult years, college. Is this kind of what you thought about?
Patrice, I've always thought I'd go to Africa.
Is that right?
I had a third grade teacher who was a missionary in Africa. And I thought, this is great. I think, there's a lot of people in need there. And maybe this is where I should go. So I've always had kind of a mindset to go overseas. And as I grew, figuring out what talents and gifts I have, it eventually evolved into using my professional skills.
Wow. So you've always kind of been, in a sense, for lack of a better word, missional. Somebody who really
Yeah.
is making decisions based on helping others, serving, and
Mhm.
so forth. What brought about this? Were your parents in service organizations? Were there mission organizations? Were there in nonprofit? Were there teachers? Tell me a bit about the background that shaped this thing so early for you.
Yeah. Well, my family are a family of teachers. So
Ah,
my father was a grade school principal, and he'd done that for many years. Teacher before that, obviously. My mother was a teacher. All my siblings, most of my siblings are teachers. My aunts and uncles. And even we found on the um, Ellis Island list, aside from farmer, servant, and then teacher.
wow.
So as our family entered the U.S. So yeah, that's always been in the background of my mind, and my kind of a family legacy. A lot of people doing teachings, outreach work. Also, my mother was the church secretary for some time. We would have missionaries over all the time, and there's always that mindset in front of me that there's a great need out beyond our borders.
Wow, that is awesome. So tell me, so you you met your wife one of these days, and you said, "Hi, honey, I just so you know, I'm going to serve in Africa." I mean, how did that? So tell me about the courting and how your wife discovered this calling you, and how how she embraced it.
Well, I got married later in life. It took a while. So by the time we got to that, I was pretty well focused on where I'm going to go. And, Africa moved out of the picture at that point. And so I was looking at India
Mm,
and being part of the singles community in our church. One of the things we were talking about, what would be a great honeymoon? And I said, well, how about a mission trip? And apparently a lot of the girls are going, oh, that's just Brian, but this, she was there. And so she heard that. Oh, that would be interesting.
wow. So
So
literally, what drew her to you was your heart for others.
I'd like to think so. So
Wow. So you have the right one there. And along the way, you guys now, but what's interesting about you though, along the way, you chose to get an MBA. So for you, it's not, when people hear the word mission, they kind of think of the traditional Christian mission service. You are a Christian professional. So which means for you, it was
mhm.
about providing hard skills and acumen for the most needed, for the most vulnerable in the world. It's almost like here in the U.S., you might have impact investor, people that bring capital to areas of most need with a multi-bottom line, or you may have what they
Yeah.
call social enterprises. So tell us a bit about this idea of a Christian professional and how that is different than what we typically think of as missionaries.
Yeah, Christian professional. We are who we are. I'm as I went over initially as a technician, a programmer, an IT director, and I serve using the gifts that God has given me to transform lives in the community. And so we don't run around doing other things, but we focus on being who we are, and that includes being who we are in Christ. And we serve and operate out of integrity. We meet needs. We see what the needs are, and we use those gifts and skills uh, for God's glory.
Wow, I love it. So, but then for you, business was an important part of that process. So you would think a kid like you have a heart for the vulnerable, would not think business, would think like, like your parents teaching some kind of professional service,
Mhm.
not business. Tell me about how that played in and why that was important for you.
I went through, because I started at an early age thinking through that. I had that mindset of, well, I'll do this traditional route. And then I thought, well, I keep getting challenged in different places. How about this? What about this? There's a lot of needs in the marketplace. And I think even Billy Graham said something about the next greatest mission is in the marketplace. And so that really got me thinking. It's like, almost a lot of people can do the traditional way, but why not do something different? Why not find the need in the marketplace and help transform the marketplace into one that can transform lives and communities, so that instead of just hitting one person at a time, you're able to impact a business, and that business can impact the community, and that community can then be a blessing, and have it grow out from there. So that just made a lot of sense to me, because everyone has to do business of some kind, or they're impacted by business somehow in its everyday life. And so why can't we take these redemptive values into the marketplace and help transform lives that way?
Wow, I love it. And then along to it, by the way, Wenji, welcome. Wenji says, God bless your mission. Thank you, Wenji. Welcome. Thanks for watching and for listening to us today. So Brian, along the way, you then chose to enroll in biblical entrepreneurship and be a part of that. Why biblical entrepreneurship? How has that impacted kind of what you do and how you do it?
I back up a little bit. I left India, went through kind of a succession plan in there, and I had some ideas that I wanted to try, and a lot of things that I learned. I didn't exactly know what I learned. I found a lot of success after some frustration, and then wanted to find out more about that. So I got my MBA from Corban University, and it really labeled a lot of things that I was doing, and I was like, now I know that's why I did this. This is what that was. This is what that means. And it wrapped everything up really well. And then I got introduced to Nehemiah Project, and it expanded it even more. It's like I've seen you have this written down as a mini MBA course. And so I already got my MBA. I said, well, this went even deeper in biblical values and ways that put everything together. And so I just really appreciated that and took on that challenge. And the curriculum was amazing. I have students telling me he says, wow, you're a great teacher. I was like, I'm just following the curriculum. It's laid out very well, and it's very informative, very biblical, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, awesome. Now, Brian, there have been a number of people who've had their MBA and then took biblical entrepreneurship. Tell me about how you contract the difference for me, as someone who has a traditional MBA and has gone through biblical entrepreneurship.
I think traditional MBA, mine wasn't necessarily the fully traditional, because of being in Corban University is going to have more of a biblical base to it. But I still feel that it's helpful to have both of those. You're going to get a lot more in depth in different areas of the business administration. But if you want a crash course, or if you don't have time to go through the entire MBA, the biblical entrepreneurship course is a fantastic way to get through it. Or if you need to be refreshed on what you've learned before and have an extra dose of biblical content into what you're doing, and to be able to apply all that, this is where I see biblical entrepreneurship is really helpful with that.
Awesome. And then you became a certified trainer. So now, as home office coach, you actually end up going to Africa after all. You teach virtually in Kenya. Yeah. And then so how's the experience as a trainer and a home office coach? How has that worked out for you? What kind of impact are you seeing?
It's been amazing, because when we had to leave Lebanon to care for my mother-in-law, and so that's going as well as can be expected right now. But I thought, great, we're out of the country. How can we continue to connect? And then the pandemic happened, and we started doing everything online. And I'm actually even connected more. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the ability with that carried over into all these other areas. I was with Nehemiah as we transitioned. We just kind of started playing with the idea of the e-community online and doing trainings online. And then when the shutdown happened, it's like, okay, we're ready. And so I think my work has increased because of the shutdown and the ability. I have more of a captive audience now, but and it's also freed up some time for them to take some of these courses. But that's been pretty amazing, and to be able to connect into people's lives. I know that some of the people I've been training in Kenya, I was even asked to do a little bit of coaching with our this year's International Business Plan winner regarding education online, how to do online education. So I was able to mix some of my past experience in India doing IT work and education, and my computer experience and online and web experience, and be able to kind of help coach along and speak into part of her plan. And she went on to win it. So I'm happy to be part of that. And Frank was gracious to recommend me to help her a little bit. But that was amazing.
Now it's interesting that Nina won. Were you surprised that she won as you saw the competition?
Not really. She was brilliant. She just she had every piece nailed down. She knew what she was doing. The presentation was amazing, and she just knows her business. And most of all, she understood the need, and she was able to speak into that very clearly and very well and organized.
Yeah. I mean, some amazing talent in Kenya, as you've been discovering. Just incredible what God is doing there in Kenya. And Frank is an amazing leader. Brian, this year you were selected as a 2020 Trainer of the Year for your service. First of all, thank you so much for your service. Congratulations there. You kind of would help pioneer as a trainer. I remember when I was, mentor training you, if you will, and then you've kind of taken it over. How has that been, kind of leading that charge all by yourself? And as you think about that award and the fact that part of it was because of how you've pioneered this whole online effort, how's that been for you?
Well, I wouldn't say it's. I still have a team. I got amazing people like Wendy and Deborah and yourself, and then Poe and Sam, and the whole team behind that makes it work. Mm-hmm. All I do is I log in and I start training. Well, and I prepare for it. But that's the whole team behind that makes it possible. And so I can't accept all the credit because you set me up for success, and I'm just happy to be able to see that through.
Awesome. Now it's funny that you end up being a trainer after all. Your parents were teachers, and so you kind of continue the legacy, if you will.
Yeah, you kind of can't help that. It's just you see teaching modeled, and the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, I think. So.
That is true. But do you enjoy teaching yourself?
Yeah, I do. I'm once I get into the zone and start teaching, I just enjoy that. And I enjoy seeing people realize something for the first time, or especially we'll probably get to this in a moment, but one of the biggest realizations that a lot of students have is that when they realize that I'm a steward, I'm not the owner, God owns the business. And then the lights go on, and it's just exciting to see that.
Wow, this is awesome. By the way, Brian, what is IDEAS?
Yeah, IDEAS is International Development and Educational Associates. They serve overlooked and forgotten people. Their vision is to see transform lives in communities of contagious hope, and their mission is to demonstrate love, serving forgotten and overlooked people by meeting social, intellectual, physical, and spiritual needs.
Oh, wow. Now, why IDEAS? What makes that kind of unique organization for you to be a part of?
Because they can, they have that mindset that you go out with integrity, you are who you are, you can maintain yourself as a Christian as well as a professional, and transform lives. And so that's why I think this organization is unique in that regard. We are who we are, and we're able to have an impact, especially in areas. And I like their focus in areas of overlooked and forgotten peoples. And so it's not just going anywhere; it's going with intentional into areas of people that are forgotten.
I like the point you make about you are who you are. Now, many folks may be listening and say, why does it keep making that emphasis? And part of the reason, let me take a whack at it, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there are some Christian organizational individuals who go to countries as something other than what they are. In other words, they're truly going as missionaries, but they act as though they're Christian professionals, but they're not really going to do the function or the vocation they're talking about. It's just a means to get into that country. They may say, I'm going to do a business, but they're not really going to set up a business. They're going to do a something mock, something not real. And now it's well intended. But what you guys take in the position is, you know what, why fake the funk, as the kids would say? You know, why pretend to be what we're not? That just be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a nurse, be a teacher, be a business owner. And while you're at it, you know, represent Christ. Is that kind of the take for ideas?
Yeah, we need to make sure that we are, again, who we say we are. We go in with integrity. We make sure that we're doing what we're expected to be doing, that there's nothing to hide. That's pretty much it. You know, it's just it's not complicated. It's just we want to make sure that we respect local authorities, local governments, and honor them.
I don't want to put you on the spot here, but why would other organization not do that? I mean, what's the logic there, Brian? Because to me, it makes a lot of sense. But what's the logic? What was the good intention that has been misappropriated, or that has kind of been gone off the rail? Or was there any good intent? I'm sure there was.
Yeah, well, I think while they may have good intentions, I think going into something just because a country or something says, "Oh, if you come in to do this, you can't do that." Well, you need to, you know, there's consequences. So you need to honor the country that you're in. But some people make that decision, and so that's up to them. But I like the idea of, you know, we need to be who we are. It's much easier on your children. You don't have a dual persona. We're just very transparent, and I think transparency is very important. And so we need to make sure that we do that.
So the end does not justify the means. Is that what you're kind of telling us?
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily judge some organizations that might do that, but I would tend to fall on that line. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I would agree with you. And I think many organizations are realizing that, and they're moving more towards where you are, which I just think that's the way it should operate. I mean, you know, I think it does better for the ministry itself. It does better for the kingdom, and it keeps people safer, in my view. But let's move off of that. So let's talk about Lebanon, which is kind of why you're here. So you were in Lebanon, and due to your circumstance with your family made a decision, particularly your father-in-law, to leave Lebanon. That must have been tough for you. I'm sure your kids were like, woo-wee, we're going home. But that must have been tough for you with the heart. So tell us a bit about first your time in Lebanon, what you did there, and what led to you coming back home while still serving the country.
Yeah, Lebanon came after about 15 years in India. And I had just finished my MBA, and my wife finished her Master's of Teaching, and we were encouraged with a new focus in Lebanon. My wife started teaching at an evangelical school there, and while she was doing that, I went to kind of feel the pulse of the community for business. What is the marketplace like? And so I spent my first 2 or 3 years, you know, learning culture, learning language, you know, because you can't just go into a country and just start doing business. You need to learn how to respect the culture and also be a continual learner. And so, but during that time, I was able to connect with some good organizations. I met some amazing people. I was asked to help a gentleman who was trying to start a business. And he had some real struggles. He started sooner than he should have, and and there were some additional challenges as well. I can't go into, but it was a great experience to see, you know, how business worked there and to encourage him. And finally, at some point, we realized he needed to pivot completely. So he closed that business and started doing something else. So from there, it was a great time of connection. I was developing relationships, and that's really key. And as we know in Nehemiah and Kingdom Business Coaching, relationships are the foundation of what we do, and as well as for business. And so you're developing relationships, getting to know people, getting to know you, your reputation, your integrity, and so that laid a whole foundation. And then just as things started getting going, I was doing some teaching and training there. My mother-in-law was diagnosed with Parkinson's and dementia. So at that point, my wife went home in the summer to evaluate. I continued on as long as I could, and then we realized, okay, we just need to be home for them. And so we made that decision to leave. But before I left, I made sure that I had connections all set up there, and would do my best to continue connecting. And so I think to go on from there will lead into the next question. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you. And then you can now let me go back a little bit to while you were in Lebanon. Why did you guys pick Lebanon? What was so special about that country?
Well, it is a focus of the same reason we picked India, a focus that our church community had, and said there's great needs there, and in the community that we're in, that's our biggest influence, and say, hey, we see great needs over here. Okay, well, let's see how I can. A lot of people won't go, and I'm one of those people that I like to go where people don't go. And so I saw the need there, and wanted to use these gifts and talents that God has given us. My wife is included, and so that's part of the decision that moved us towards Lebanon.
Oh, wow. Wayonyi says, teacher's legacy lives on. I agree with that. Thanks for watching. The deposit you're making in people is, Wanji said, it is a blessing and honor to know you, Brian. Brian, obviously, Wanji knows who you are. Is Wanji from Lebanon, by the way?
Yes, he's from Lebanon.
Wow. Well, is he there now?
Yeah, he's
Wow.
chatting live from Lebanon.
Wow, Lebanon.
Life group.
I'm sorry?
He's in our life group that we have tomorrow.
Wow. Well, Wanji, good to see you. Welcome. We're praying for you, brother, and for Lebanon. So you come back. This is prior to COVID-19, and but let's talk a bit. When you got back, you kind of re-engaged and you started some life groups, started some different activities. Let's talk about that, because before the explosion, well, let's go back a bit. Even when you were in Lebanon, there were issues there. Let's talk a bit about the terrain and the challenges that was happening, that you felt that you were hopefully trying to be part of the solution. What was the state like before COVID-19?
Well, if we back up to before October 17th, there's been economic challenges there. People have been frustrated. The ability to do business or set up business, I think Lebanon, I can't remember the exact number, but when you look at a list of how easy is it to start a business, at least for foreigners, Lebanon is one of the most difficult in that regard. There's a lot of loopholes you have to go through, but they've been, plagued with challenges. They had come out of a civil war previously, then the refugee crisis hit, and so then you have nearly at one point 2 million refugees in there from Syria, and a lot of unrest going on, battling issues with border of the nation to the south of Lebanon, and there's been a lot of challenges that they have to face. And then finally, October 17th came around. Something triggered frustration in the people, concerns about corruption in the government, and protests started. Some call it a revolution, and so that just continued on and on and on. And it was across sectarian lines. Everyone joined together. They were just unified. And shortly after, the prime minister stepped down. So that takes us all the way to the issue of COVID. And so up to that point, we had the kids were out of school. Everything was shut down because of protests. And then things started kind of calm a little bit, but protests continued. And then COVID hit and then shut down even more. So then kids are lucky if they got 7 weeks of school this year. So the economy at this point was pretty much devastated. Many of the banks closed or they froze accounts. So you can't quite access some things. And so I'm not going to speculate on the rest of the issues there. But the Lebanese pound or Lebanese lira lost about 80% of its former value. It used to be at, well, I don't need to give that level, but losing 80% of its value is incredibly high, difficult. Employment estimated maybe about 60% now. And for the first time in about 100 years, groups like the UN or major aid groups are saying, using the word like famine. And so they're either unable to find food, with the war still going on in Syria and other issues. Already before the blast came up, they were already hurting very badly. And so it made the economy very hard. And there's also a huge brain drain. A lot of people are just leaving Lebanon in droves.
Wow, wow. And in the midst of this, Brian, you began some activity. 1G is in your life group. Tell us a bit about, prior even to the blast, some of the things you were doing to serve the Lebanese people, even virtually, in the midst of COVID-19.
Yeah, prior to the blast, I had started actually a life group on Zoom, and was pulling together my connections instead of driving all the way down to Tyre and Tripoli and other places. I was able to, and because of the lockdown, people had a curfew, and so I asked some of my friends, when's a good time to have a life group? And they said like 7:00 because everyone has to be in their home. So I started that and started advertising to have people join, and it's been a great weekly connection to reconnect with them, to spend time in prayer, to encourage one another, focusing on the entrepreneurs in the area, and then encouraging them to either get some coaching or take some classes, and then also helping them to collaborate with each other. It's great to see them connect when they find out where they are in the country. Say, hey, let's go meet. So that's been a really exciting thing up to the point of the latest crisis.
Wow. So if you want to be a part of the Brian's life group with Lebanon, just reach out to Brian. Team, put Brian's email address on the so that people can reach out to Brian. You can also visit Nehemiah ecommunity.com and just sign up for live group, and we'll connect you with Brian. Why don't you say we live in Godfidence, the words of the preaching of Patrice, and he's referring to the devotional that we did called Godfidence. Yeah, amen. Thank you so much for that, YG. So I'm trying to imagine, Brian, again, before the blast. So you're working with people like 1G and others in Lebanon around the world who are in technically a war zone, in situations where it's very tough. How are you keeping them encouraged week by week? I mean, what are the discussions like? I'm trying to imagine in my head.
Oh yeah, a lot of prayer, and listening, and hearing what the needs are and the concerns. But to encourage, also just letting people know that we care, and that there is hope, and then finding word of hope in Scripture and through teaching. But the main part is the relationship. Continuing to develop that and not giving up, and saying we're here for you no matter what.
Wow, that is awesome. So the blast happens. So tell me a bit. Where were you when it happened? Like, when did you hear about it? And then tell us a bit about that and the implication. Kind of give us an education of that situation that happened in Beirut.
Yeah. So that happened on August 4th. It was in the evening in Beirut. It was morning time here. I'm in Oregon. And I was out walking with my wife and my dog. And I got a video message through WhatsApp. And I have to be careful when I call it so I don't get too emotional. And I saw the blast. And at first I thought, I hope this is fake. And then I recognized the area, and then I started getting all these other reports, and it brought me to tears. that this happened down in downtown Beirut, and there's so many people down there, and so immediately we ran back to the house and we started connecting with everybody that we can think of to find out, are you okay? Are you okay? Is there anything we can do to help? And then reports just started coming in about what happened, and yeah, it was really sad and shocking.
Wow. And so I'm trying to imagine you going through that, and then I'm trying to figure out how was your next life group discussion like, as people like Wanji that you now had to connect with to kind of talk about first what they're going through. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it was a difficult time. First of all, we want to make sure that everyone was okay, and so we did our check-ins, and some couldn't make it because they're out helping people, or they're exhausted from helping. I have one of the people in our life groups. He's an engineer, and so he's been taken off his regular task to go out and assess buildings and things. And yeah, I think the main thing from that, again, in the relationship, being able to have a safe place to share, to let people know what's going on, to pray together and find out each other's needs. I feel that was encouraging. I remember one of them said that, we're thankful that you care about us, and we're not, we're not going to forget or leave Lebanon alone. We're going to continue to pray and lift them up.
Wow. YG, again, a prayer goes out for you guys in Lebanon and the things you're going through there. So that's kind of happening. And now you've kind of prepared something for us to kind of help us understand what's happening there, so that we can kind of get a picture. Do you want to share that now?
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, I need to give credit to this slide from my friend Scott. He had a report from Lebanon just the other day, so I didn't put this together. But you've probably seen, if you did any research at all online, you've probably seen this graphic before, showing where the blast happened, and then outer rings of destruction. So you have the inner blast site, which happened in the port. There's right next to where most of the grain for Lebanon was supplied, and the blast site, the dark red part, was where there's just complete devastation. I have a friend who's a chiropractor who I think was inside that red area, and so his business, he sent me pictures about what happened there. Fortunately, they were safe. They were blocked by another building, so they didn't get as much of the blast, but it just blew out all their windows, and everything is, from the ceiling and everything is fallen down. So about 200 people are dead or missing, and about 7,000 injured, 300,000 displaced from their homes. This is I've been told, primarily a kind of a Christian area. So it's pretty devastating, and I know a lot of organizations and churches that are going in there, and they're continuing to help. It's been almost a month now, and they're continuing to help these people that are displaced. I know some of the schools and seminaries have opened up and are housing people there. And estimates so far about $15 billion in damage. That's alone, knowing that they are currently, up to this point, they're about 85 billion in debt, and so 15 billion is a big chunk of that. And what caused it, basically, what is going on there, some are saying that there was a hole in the side of a building that they were repairing, and maybe something caught fire in the fireworks around that area, and there was 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate that was stored there from about 2014. It was confiscated from a Russian freighter that wasn't seaworthy, and so it was impounded, and so it was left there. And then the fire somehow started at some point, and then engulfed that, and then you have the resulting explosion. And some are saying that this is one of the largest man-made explosions in history. So maybe the top third or fourth explosion. So it was heard all the way to Cyprus, if you can imagine.
Wow.
And blew out windows up to 15 miles away.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
yeah, so that's the statistics of what happened there. You can imagine the human suffering that's they're going on with now. I have a friend of mine who I do coaching with once in a while. He has a Christian business store, and his son was caught in part of the glass, part of the blast, and so his head to toe, he had like 100 stitches. He's okay, but that's a lot of trauma for a 14-year-old to go through.
Wow. Wow. So businesses destroyed, people hurt, including children, but a clear shock to an already suffering economy and nation. And then you saying that this is a predominantly Christian area?
Yeah, that's what I've been told, and so that has a big impact in that community. But fortunately, we have a lot of good organizations in the area. I think the church that I attend there, Resurrection Church (RCB), is reaching out to this area. Heart for Lebanon, an organization that we know well as a relief organization, is having a big impact in there, as well as Youth for Christ is normally not a relief organization, but as in Lebanon, it happens. So they're using their workers to reach out, as well as many other organizations are doing their part.
Wow, that's incredible. Brian, because of this, you launched, or you helped to start various a GoFund, a way just to raise relief support. Tell us a bit about it and how our listening viewers can help.
Okay. There's actually several, and you can go to not only the GoFundMe site, but there's, you can give through Youth for Christ, Heart for Lebanon, Village Baptist Church has one, and my organization Ideas also is a good conduit for those. So whichever one you feel most comfortable giving through. The church, Resurrection Church, where I attend when I'm in Lebanon, they had asked me if I could set one up in the U.S., and so I obliged, and I trust them. And so I've worked with them, and I continue to want to develop a relationship with them. So so that's one way that you can help out is through any number of these GoFundMes or organizations.
And these monies is going towards relief efforts. And tell us a bit about how the importance of these resources that they're raising.
Yeah, these relief efforts, they go to help not only medical. A lot of people have been injured by it, but also to help rebuild. I know that Youth for Christ is helping out. From a report from my friend Scott yesterday, a lot of the buildings that were blown out, the aluminum framing that holds the windows and things, that's all blown out and wasted. So they're able to go in and they contracted with a group that provides replacement frames and windows. And so they, along with a lot of other groups, including RCB, are providing the service and trying to help meet people's needs, because there's so many that are displaced. I know RCB has also found places for people to stay, as well as a lot of areas. And I think over 100 schools were damaged in that blast as well.
Wow.
And so some of these schools 178 schools were damaged in the blast. And so, and even some of these may not recover.
Wow. And you've told me that, I mean, sometimes even just getting their money is an issue. If I've got money in the bank, I overnight, I can't get it because of the banking situation. Sometimes just money to eat is an issue. You've even had to send money over.
Yeah.
I mean, give us, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the banking situation is really challenging right now. Thinking that the bank is concerned about solvency or maybe panicking, they have frozen some accounts, so people just don't, do a whole run on the bank. But then they're also limiting how much you can pull out, and so that's really hard for some people that maybe they have bigger families or bigger needs. So they can't pull everything, at least out of the U.S. dollar accounts. And if they can pull it out, it has to come out in the local account. which has lost 80% of its value. So that's a real challenge right there.
So overnight, they lost 80% of their value if they had U.S. accounts.
Not it was a rapid process, but it started before the blast.
Okay.
So it's not the blast's fault necessarily. It's they ever since October they started having this unrest and shutting things down, and then COVID, and just things just kept one after another building up.
Wow. I mean, things just kept getting worse. Brian, do you know if the U.S. government is doing anything to help, and other governments at all?
I know France in particular is, in fact, I think France has actually visited. I just got a video of some French planes flying over, but that's one of their favorite countries. They were only in France for a time, and so France has a special connection there, and so they're helping. As far as I know, I think the U.S. wants to help. They're concerned about, will the money get where it needs to go? There's, again, political concerns in there going on, because if you send it in, is it going to go to someone they don't want?
Yeah, of course.
So I'll leave it at that.
And they do speak French over there. Again, I know you're watching, you're listening, you're saying, I'm going through my own situation, COVID-19. We've made a little contribution as the Nehemiah Project. I'm sure Brian has been helping. If you can help, go to that GoFundMe or find a resource that you trust based on the things that Brian mentioned and help out. So let me pray for you. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord enable you to steward those talents that He's placed under your care. And may you steward them in such a way that one day you might hear those wonderful words. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Guess what? He'll now make you rule over much. God bless you. See you again next time. Thank you, Brian. Love you guys so much.
Thank you, Patrice. Thank you for letting me share with you what God is doing in our lives in and around Lebanon. If you are interested in the full interview, you can find it on Facebook in the Nehemiah Project International Ministries page. You can also learn more about our organization Ideas at ideasworld.org. And if you would like us to visit your life group or connect with us further, you can let us know next time you see us at church, or contact the church and they'll let us know, and then we'll get together. Please continue to pray for Lebanon, as well as those affected locally by the wildfires. Now, to Him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us, to Him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen.